Good morning, BookTube. It is the final day of the reading rush, and you are not seeing my face right now as I head to the kitchen to grab the coffee I just made because I am currently doing a clay mask, and you don't need to be badly frightened like that. But yesterday I told you that I was going to begin reading 15 Dogs, and I didn't because honestly I've lost interest in it. I've come to the point, as I was afraid I would, but told myself I wouldn't, to the point in this readathon where I've lost all interest in it, which explains the lack of video yesterday, even when I started putting footage together. I went off to the Rideau Center, I bought a pair of shoes, I got some snacks, I went to my friend's place, we watched 5 episodes of ER. I came home, I Skyped with Janelle from All the World's a Page, and I went to bed. And today I've either got to read 15 Dogs or I'm supposed to be reading Colonel Chabray by Honoré de Balzac. And while Colonel Chabray does interest me, my interest really lies elsewhere today. I do not want to read these books I said I would read. And so I'm not going to read the final books on my TBR. Instead, I will cap off this week of vlogging by showing you the alternative books I decide to read today. Let me set down my coffee. So let's stroll over here. And this is a book that I ordered on Amazon. I know Amazon, but it was where I could find it. This is a book I ordered earlier this week. I had seen another booktuber talking about this one. I'm forgetting her channel name, but I'm pretty sure her name is Anna. And she was talking about this book, which intrigued me to the point that I knew I absolutely had to buy it. So this is a novel called Pulp by Robin Talley. And it is about 2 queer teens, 60 years apart, connected by the power of storytelling. And it's called Pulp because there are the lesbian pulp novels involved. So in 1955, 18-year-old Janet Jones keeps the love she shares with her best friend Marie a secret. It's not easy being gay in Washington, D.C. in the age of McCarthyism. But when she discovers a series of books about women falling in love with other women, it awakens something in Janet. As she juggles a romance she must keep hidden and a newfound ambition to write and publish her own story, she risks exposing herself and Marie to danger all too real. 62 years later, Abby Zimmett can't stop thinking about her senior project and its subject, classic 1950s lesbian pulp fiction. Between the pages of her favorite book, the stresses of Abby's own life are lost to the fictional hopes, desires, and tragedies of the characters she's reading about. She feels especially connected to one author, a woman who wrote under the pseudonym Marian Love, and becomes determined to track her down and discover her true identity. So I think I would guess here that Marian Love is probably Janet Jones from 1955. And I'm hoping this is a good one because the premise sounds absolutely fascinating. If you've been following my channel for a bit, you'll know that I'm a fan of the 1950s pulp novels. Even just ducking down here to tea, here's my Valerie Taylor and my Teresca Torres. And if we head over here, let's see. Letter B. Yeah, here we go. Here's my Anne Bannon. Odd Girl Out, I Am a Woman, Women in the Shadows, Journey to a Woman, and of course Bebo Brinker. And whenever I see a lesbian pulp novel, I pick it up because they're not something that are easy to find these days because they were published as, cheap paperback pulp novels. But every once in a while you do find an original paperback, like I've got Anne Aldrich's We Two Must Love, which has minimal damage, but it's readable, and I did read that one. And back over here with letter T, I had found Teresca Torres' novel Not Yet, which is actually set in Paris at the turn of the Second World War. And our young protagonist finds herself taking on a very brave and adult role in that one as the nuns flee her convent school. And of course, she does have feelings for women as well. But that's a good novel that I read around Christmas time. So I'll probably read Pulp today. Possibly, I might also start on one of these Trollope novels because I've been wanting to read some Trollope. I will decide in the next little bit as I have my cup of coffee. But what it comes down to is I'm not going to let myself be constrained by a random TBR that I chose a week ago. I will read whatever the hell I feel like today.
I'm drawn to the chaos in the wind. Can't help but take a look around then.
So just a quick little chat here while I let some laundry soak in the bathroom sink. I'm getting creative here. Got dresses hanging in the shower and whatnot. All the laundry machines are busy downstairs, and it costs $2 a load anyway, so I figure I may as well be economical where I can and hand wash some things. I might end up doing a load of laundry early tomorrow morning before work when the machines are free. I would hope they'd be free at 5 a.m., but just as I'm, hanging around here doing the laundry, watching some booktube, I thought I would check in and talk about how my reading went today. I have read almost 300 pages of Pulp by Robin Talley, and I am really enjoying it. This morning I went off and I went to Pub Italia on Preston Street here in Ottawa in Little Italy, and that's a pub I've been to maybe 2 or 3 times. Now that I live a lot closer, it makes more sense for me to go and to make that one of my stomping grounds, so to speak, for my reading. But I'm going to insert some footage here that I took inside. It's a little bit dark, so you can't see it in its full glory, but it's quite a unique pub. It's like, I don't know how to describe the decor. The decor is like religious Catholic church decor mixed with your typical pub decor and like twinkly lights and stained glass. And it's just a unique place to go. Now, when I was there today, it was pretty empty on the inside because it was only about noon when I went. They opened at noon, so I went shortly after noon. And of course, it was nice weather, so the patio outside was packed, but inside it was nice and quiet. And I prefer to sit where it's quiet and cool rather than out in the hot sun on the patio. So here's some footage there. And after that footage, you'll see a clip that I took at the bus stop with a few general thoughts on the book after I left Pub Italia. Hi BookTube, it's Amy. So I'm really enjoying Pulp so far. We have two parallel stories going on. One that includes the friendship and exploration of Abby, who is in love with her best friend Lynn. We find out that Lynn and Abby actually used to date, but Lynn chose to break up with Abby at the end of their grade 11 year. And now they are in their final year of high school, grade 12. And Abby is doing a senior project, and she's decided, after discovering 1950s pulp fiction, to write her own pulp fiction novel, but to subvert the genre. And she is obsessed with a particular author, Miriam Love, I think the author's name is. And so she wants to find out who this author was. She only ever published one pulp novel, and she has dreams of meeting her, but we find out that Miriam Love, that was her pen name, was actually Janice, and that Janice was in love with her own best friend back in the 1950s. And then from there, I went on to Oh So Good Desserts in the Byward Market on York Street here in Ottawa, where I met up with a friend. Her birthday was yesterday, and mine is a week from today, so we went for cake and had a little birthday celebration between the two of us. One of the things that I'm really loving about Pulp is the impact that the pulp novels, the lesbian pulp novels, have on our two main characters. So Janet is heavily influenced in her own writing by an earlier novel called A Love So Strange. And it also opens, the world up to her, that there is this culture for people like her that she didn't know about. And then Abby repeats this pattern in a more contemporary way years later in 2017, when she stumbles across Women of the Twilight Realm, which is that novel published by Marian Love, by Janet. And although the novel doesn't assist, with her coming out or with her feeling of belonging in the community, she relates to it very much, and she almost imagines herself in the place of one of the characters. She feels a connection to Janet, the author, and she starts to, look at her own life a little bit through the lens of some of these feelings that she's having and reading these lesbian pulp novels that she's stumbled across. And we see in her own writing, because she begins to write her own lesbian pulp novel with a contemporary twist in her writing and in her reading and her research, because she is actively seeking the author of Women of the Twilight Realm. She is actively seeking Marian Love. We see her using this whole project to almost, I don't know how to describe it. She internalizes it to deal with her failed relationship with her friend Lynn, and with the fact that she's still very much in love with Lynn, and Lynn no longer seems to be in love with her. And so it's not just about seeing this past, it's about relating to this past and using it to process things emotionally, I guess. So I'm greatly enjoying this, and it is fun reading through to come across references to some of the lesbian pulp novels that I've read. Women's Barracks, the Anne Bannon novels. And when Abby and Lynn are in the lounge in the opening scene and they discover this lesbian pulp genre, they see the name Bebo, as in Bebo Brinker of the Anne Bannon series, and one of them says, "What kind of name is Bebo?" And the other says, "Well, it's a 1950s name." And so it's fun to come across all these titles that I've discovered myself and read. And while I was sitting at Pub Italia, I wrote down a few page numbers on my bookmark here. Page 137, 140, 162. So let's choose one of these and see what's going on here. So on page 140 here, she is talking to Ken, a local historian. Her teacher has directed her to this historian to assist her in the research for her project and to assist her in her quest to find Marian Love. She has this fantasy in her head of meeting Marian Love, and she has envisioned Marian Love as someone who was strong and courageous and out in her life with her friends and family, and essentially someone who would take no shit from anyone. But Ken reminds her that given the conditions that she was living in the mid-50s, there's a pretty good chance that she wasn't out. Ken says he's talking about the Lavender Scare, which occurred, I guess, in the States during the McCarthy era, around the same time as the Red Scare. I'm more familiar with the Canadian history on this, but we had our own version of the Lavender Scare here in Canada, and it was actually just last year that the federal government finally apologized for the treatment of LGBTQ2 plus people in the public service. There were many people who were refused jobs or outright fired because of who they were. And the federal government finally last year issued a formal apology and said that there was no excuse for things like the fruit machine. But here, Abby is learning about McCarthyism and about the Lavender Scare in the United States, where I guess beginning in the 50s and into the 60s and the 70s, possibly even the 80s, it was common practice to deny security clearance to LGBTQ2 people because they were considered a security risk, and many people were fired when they were found out. And as Ken says here, many people even committed suicide when they were found out because their lives were falling apart. And he compares it to a witch hunt. But he does say that because of the necessary secrecy, that's how gay bars and lesbian bars came to flourish in the 1950s. And Abby herself is aware. She says that in the 50s, there were more lesbian bars around than there are today. But Ken says here, well, either way, if she was here in D.C., the author that she's looking for, Marian Love, her community was in the process of being devastated during the time when she was writing this book. Thousands of people lost their jobs, and most of them had to leave the city, too. Getting fired from a government job for being gay meant being blacklisted by pretty much every other employer in the area, and not working wasn't an option for the vast majority of people. Even if the author you're looking for never worked for the government herself, odds are that others in her social circle did. Writing a book like this would mean putting those people in danger. She probably used a pseudonym because she was conscious of how bad the consequences would be if she were found. And so then Abby thinks, okay, maybe Marian Love had been closeted. No matter how strong you were, it would have been basically impossible to live openly if you were up against something like that. And we go on to learn from Janet's point of view here. Janet, who is Marian Love. Marian Love is her pen name. We learn from Janet's point of view that her best friend, the woman that she's in love with, Marie, is a secretary with the government. And the point I'm at now, they are concerned that her security clearance will be denied if they are found out. And Marion is reflecting, well, not really reflecting, she is quite literally freaking out to Janet about her boss, who has disappeared from the office. He was abruptly fired, as was a male accountant. On the same day, she came into work and found the offices empty and was told that she had a new boss. And then through gossip near the elevators and stuff, she found out why he had disappeared. He had been fired because he was gay, and so she is concerned that that will happen to her as well. And Janet's father is actually in politics, so that would very adversely affect his career if she is found out. And so they have these fears, and Marie is saying, maybe we shouldn't see each other right now. Maybe it's not safe. And Marie is going around with a man that she doesn't really want to be going with in order to keep up a front. So it's got a very serious tone to it, but it's also a fun novel to see Abby discovering this history and discovering these great lesbian pulp novels of the 1950s. I think I am going to call it a day with this vlogging here. I hope that you have enjoyed my vlogs this past week. I am thinking that I might do something fun in the future. I might do like vlog Sundays or something. So I would vlog my Sunday, tell you when I'm reading and where I'm reading. If you would be interested in that, let me know in the comments below. Sorry for sort of bailing on Reading Rush. I promised it wouldn't happen, and then it did. But doesn't matter, right? It's just a readathon. I hope if you participated in Reading Rush, you had a fun time. I did for the first few days until I got bored, but that's how things go.